Welcome to Discovering. Tonight I have a story on the South Shore Fishing Association's annual Veterans Fishing Day, and there is a new book on the shelves titled The Feather Wars and the Great Crusade to Save America's Birds. I sat down with NMU Professor Emeritus James McCommons to talk about it. So sit back and relax. It's Monday night, and it's time for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Like many in my generation, I'm in my bird watching era, and I bust out the Merlin app on my phone every time I see or hear a new bird.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service estimates that 96 million people are bird watchers to some degree.
So it makes me sad to hear that 1 in 4 birds have disappeared from the American landscape since 1970.
And many of the birds that are in decline are fairly common backyard birds,
Including my favorite, the red-winged blackbird, which has declined by 92 million birds. This is history repeating itself. In the late 19th century, early 20th century, this country was losing birds, millions upon millions each year, to the food and feather industry.
In the 1870s, we had a fashion at that time that women had to have feathers in their hats, and that actually lasted well into World War I. And so a lot of birds were killed for what they called the millinery industry, which is the making and selling of women's hats.
The wood duck, which almost went extinct, was also killed for its colorful feathers, as was James's favorite bird.
The northern flicker. Yeah, I see it a lot, and it's just a beautiful bird. And in my writing, I found out that bird was very popular for women's hats because it has some beautiful feathers, but people also used to eat that bird. Birds were also being massacred and wildlife in general was being massacred because of market hunting. And that was because wildlife was a commodity. People bought and sold it. You could go down to your butcher and you could get birds, you could get a deer, definitely ducks and geese, wild animals. And so there was a whole industry built around that. And it was small at first and often local, but then it became much bigger industry when you started to have trains traveling to different parts of the country, and you also had ice. So you could put these things on ice and you could transport them great distances. So by the 1880s, 1890s, people are eating ducks and plovers and other things shot in the Midwest or the Great Plains. They're eating them in New York. In some cases, they're eating them in London and Paris because they could be moved that far. And there were eggers. The eggers were people who went over to those places to gather gull eggs for consumption. And that was another aspect of why birds were being decimated back then. A lot of people ate wild bird eggs. And it was part of that mindset of the Gilded Age that you could exploit these resources and there would always be more of them.
James documents this time in avian history in his new book, The Feather Wars and the Great Crusade to Save America's Birds.
The crusade really started earlier, probably the 1870s, 1880s, when people became concerned about birds being killed. And then there was a movement to stop doing that. And part of that was the Audubon movement. Part of it was also the Boone and Crockett Club, who was trying to bring ethics into sport hunting. And eventually, in the early 20th century, it sort of moved into the politician and the legal aspect of it. But it was also kind of a spiritual transformation that people started to change the way they thought about wasting wildlife.
This is James's third book. His first was Waiting on a Train, and the second was Camera Hunter, a biography of George Shiras.
And George Shiras was literally the first wildlife photographer and did most of his work in Deerton between Munising and Marquette, and published in the 1880s, 1890s. And then he became a congressman. And one of the things he did as a congressman, because he was a lawyer too, he created the legal underpinnings of the Migratory Bird Act. And when I had to write 2 or 3 chapters about that and the bird preservation movement, that led me to this next book, The Feather Wars and the Great Crusade to Save Birds.
James saw a connection between then and now.
So when I finished the Shiras book, I saw this bigger story that I could tell, and then at the same time, I'm starting to read in magazines and some scientific papers that we're experiencing a big decline of birds now.
Instead of market hunters with punt guns, we now have urban sprawl, pesticides, and cats.
It's due to use of pesticides. Of course, loss of habitat is always the reason that wildlife often, disappears. But it's also due to things like cats. Cats kill about 1 billion birds a year, outdoor cats that are left out, feral cats. And what's new on this too is that we're finding out that about 1 billion birds a year are killed by crashing into plate glass windows. Not just buildings, but home windows. And that was new. Even a lot of the bird advocates had a hard time believing that. And those are some things that we can change. So my idea was that the preface of the book and the epilogue of the book address what's happening today. But the rest of the book is really the history of what happened last time. But I thought that it was a good way to start the book and talk about this big problem we had back, 120 years ago, and all of these interesting groups that came together in coalition to change it. And that could happen again. The book's definitely for birders. I think people who love birds and who read bird books, this is a book for them, I think, to understand the history of the bird movement. And if you're an Audubon person, there's a lot about Audubon history in here, some that might surprise you, that Audubon did not really care much about birds of prey for a long time. They didn't think that they were worth saving.
For those looking for ties to our Great Lakes state, the book begins in the Seney Wildlife Refuge.
And so Seney was a great way to start the book because that's where the government came in, bought land, condemned some land, and created this refuge for birds. And it was a place that was also one of the birds that was very low in number at that time was the Canada goose, which people can't believe. And it's now a bird of least concern. And so that was another reason that I wanted to start it there, because that would be a way to quickly get the reader into the story. And that Canada geese was a priority for the Biological Survey, which became the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That bird was a real priority that they wanted to bring back, and Seney was part of that story.
The hardcover book is available now at local bookstores and online, as well as an audiobook version, and the paperback version will be available next March. The annual South Shore Fishing Association Veterans Fishing Day is held on the first Saturday of August in Marquette. This is an amazing event to get veterans out on Lake Superior, catching fish and thanking them for the sacrifices they made for our country. I caught up with South Shore President Joe Hansen to talk about the event.
This year we were able to take 130 vets out, and we had 60 boat captains. And out of those 130 vets, I believe the number was 80 vets were new this year and they've never participated. So that was a nice change for us. We always try to give preference to veterans that have never been out with us before. So getting 80 new people on the water was a big accomplishment for us.
Word has gotten out about the Veterans Fishing Day, drawing vets from outside the area to experience fishing Lake Superior.
So our Veterans Committee over the last couple of years has really expanded this event. Our outreach is huge. We've had people fly in from different states because they know people in the area and they wanted to come back with vets that they served with, so go out fishing for the day. We get lots of vets that come up from Wisconsin, lower Michigan. I believe we've had vets from Indiana, Ohio.
Captains also came from near and far to volunteer their time and boats to show their gratitude to our vets.
And we actually draw boat captains from out of the UP as well. This year we had a charter captain bring his boat up from the Charlevoix area and fish with us this year.
The big day started before sunrise as veterans, captains, and community members gathered to make sure no vet was left behind. Since I was still recovering from shoulder surgery, Corey Merriman of Merriman Outdoors filled in for me and jumped on board the Out of Line with Captain Dylan Holzenkamp, Keith Soderman, and Kyle Brandman, and 3 veterans, Wally Krosno, Adrian Bear, and Roger Hart.
Good morning.
Morning. Glad to meet you.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you. My name's
You
Roger.
too. Nice to meet you.
My name's Dylan Holzenkamp. This is my boat, Out of Line. She's a 285 Albemarle Express from Rapid River. This is my first year for the South Shore Veterans event. We've wanted to do it for a while, just hasn't really set forth with other tournament schedules. But we had the opportunity this year and glad that we're doing it.
Not long after they set all the lines out, they had a fish on, and Roger was up first.
I think he's still there. Yeah,
Oh yeah, he's on there. You could feel him. Yeah.
Want me to drop her down to 8?
No,
it's 400.
How's it feel, Roger? This is pretty good. This is pretty nice. Something you don't get to do every day, you know. That's pretty nice.
Is that a ham line?
Yeah.
You've done this before?
I did it once, but it's awesome to be out with these guys. These guys are so nice.
And then gonna go ahead and back up. Now I'm gonna grab the line and he'll scoop them. All right, ready?
Nice fish. Nice fish.
We're bouncing the bottom with cowbells, got low dipsy divers, fishing deep. We're not running any high lines right now just because of the fog.
There was an unexpected dense fog on the lake today.
It's pretty foggy today, so we're kind of just trying to keep out of the way of all the other boats. We got the radar on, but some of the vessels are small enough or we're not really seeing them. Had a couple close calls already this morning, but we're managing.
Luckily, we had a lot of seasoned captains out there with our vets, so they were able to navigate the waters, and we were able to put the vets on a bunch of fish.
You're gonna like that one.
Yep.
Next up was Adrian.
Good job.
Yeah, I mean it should release when a fish bites that. So.
Yeah.
Want to hit the up on the rigger?
How's it feel?
Huh?
Good one?
So far. I think it's relaxing though. It's on vacation.
Yeah, lake trout don't really rip lines too much.
First one this year, let's say.
Nice.
Yeah.
They're good eating.
Yeah, those lean strain
You know,
makers are
put them on a grill. Oh.
This event is important. It's a way for us to show that we appreciate the sacrifices they make. And, a lot of people always say the veterans are the ones that make the big sacrifices, but it's for their families too. Their families come here, they see them on the parade. Everybody's here seeing all the different vets going through, and when you're out on the water and you come through and your veterans are on your boat and they see their families up there smiling and waving, it brings everybody together, and it really shows the support and the sacrifices, they're worth it.
Back on the outer line, it was veteran Wally's turn in to reel in a lake trout. This is Wally's first time fishing the South Shore event.
Oh, we got a good one on here.
About a 30-pounder.
Yeah.
30.
Well, same thing, just reel the diver right up to the end of the rod and just start walking back. Yep, and I'll grab the line and. All right. Here, that way. Ooh. Bite. Oh. I think you're ready.
It's the biggest one I think so far.
I think you got her, Wally.
Oh, he was good size.
Yes, sir.
He'll be good on the grill.
Stop rolling.
It looked like this boat had a lot of fun on the water, and the vets caught 1 or 2 more fish each, and the outer line crew netted a total of 8 lake trout. It sounds like all the boats had a great day of fishing.
550 fish. Yeah, so it was a pretty good number. It was a very good day on the water.
After all the fish were caught, 60 boats lined up for the parade along the wall at Matson Lower Harbor Park, and the community came out to help celebrate the day's catch and the heroes who caught them.
My favorite part of the day is probably the boat parade we do. It's nice to see all the boats on the water. Luckily, the last couple of years, I've kind of been able to lead the parade, being the president, me and my vice president, Jesse. We kind of start the parade, and when you look back and you see how many boats are out there, it's amazing what the community does for our veterans. And you can see all the people, and then all the veterans come by, and there's people on the break wall here or on the wall here. They're showing their support, they're waving, they're clapping. You see veterans that weren't out on the day standing there saluting, the fellow vets. It's just an amazing experience. The smiles you see on all the veterans' faces, it really makes everything worth it.
At the wall, volunteers collected all the fish that were caught.
Jerry, did you catch all those? Jerry!
I got the salmon. That's it? Both of them? Yep. Oh! Stack them in there. All right. Got it.
They go to the cleaning station, and then once everything's all cleaned, they bag them up and they hand them out to all the vets that participated. Yep, they give them all a nice bag of fish and a cooler.
It's easy to see this is a well-organized event put on by a hardworking group of people.
Everything's kind of dialed in now. We have a pretty good routine. We have a couple great sponsors that really help us out. Christ Oil is a major sponsor. They really put a lot of time and energy into helping us with this event. Phil's Fish House, they let us clean all our fish there, and numerous other sponsors that, donate money, donate resources. It takes a whole community to put something like this on, so it's very much appreciated by all of us.
And the more captains and boats that participate, the more veterans they can host.
If anybody is interested in participating in this in future years, we always release our information at the beginning of June. It's on our SouthShoreFishingAssociation.com on our website. Look for it come beginning of June. You can register as a veteran and then as a volunteer or a boat captain. If anybody wants to be involved and be a part of it, that's when it comes out.
That's all for tonight, and I hope to see you right back here next week for Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.